billion people live on less than $1 a day. We're working in countries and humanitarian efforts like in Rwanda, where the average income is 68 cents a day. Now in Rwanda, they grow coffee, but a farmer will work all day and that night could not afford a cup of Starbucks coffee for the entire day wages. Something's wrong with that. Poverty. The fourth big problem is disease. This year, 500 million people around the world will get malaria. That's a problem we solved 100 years ago in Teddy Roosevelt's administration. Why do people still get malaria today? Because we don't have the leaders who will say, enough's enough, we're going to stop this, we're going to wipe it out right now. The number one killer of children in the world is poor water. It's diarrhea. It's waterborne eye diseases, things that we know how to get rid of, how to prevent or how to cure from the 19th and 20th century into the 21st century. And the fifth biggest problem is illiteracy. Half of the world functionally can't read or write. 5 years ago, I began working with our network of congregations around the world in what we called the Peace Plan. Dr. Matson mentioned it. Promote reconciliation, equip servant leaders, assist the poor, care for the sick, and educate the next generation. In the last 5 years, we've had over 8,000 members of my congregation go overseas, somewhere around the world in nearly 100 countries, to do this peace plan. And I want to close with this story to show you how it is possible for Muslims and Christians to work together for the greater good and the common good around us, without compromising my convictions or your convictions. 2 years ago, I was invited by President Bush to be the closing speaker for the Global Summit on Malaria. And I stood up in front of that group of world leaders and I said, I've heard of everything that's said, but we will never solve any of the major problems of the world until you involve houses of faith, mosques, temples, synagogues, churches, and so forth. There are 600,000 Buddhists in the world. There are 800,000 Hindus in the world. There are over 1 billion Muslims, a couple billion Christians. Most of the world has some kind of faith. And if you say only secularists can do humanitarian care, you've ruled out most of the world. Now, I believe that we could do this together. And I said, let me just show you an example. And so I put 3 slides on the screen. The first slide was a picture of the western province of Rwanda. And I said this is the western province of Rwanda. It has 750,000 people in it and 1 doctor and no nurses, no registered nurses for 750,000 people. I said, now it does have 3 hospitals, but they're staffed by people who aren't fully trained. And I said, it's a 2 days walk to any hospital, and you have to walk up and down a mountain, and if you get sick, there's no guarantee you'll get in the hospital, but it's a 2 days walk to the nearest hospital. Oh, by the way, 2 of these are faith-based hospitals. So you wouldn't have that if it weren't for people of faith. One of them is a secular government hospital. Then I said, let me show you the second slide. And I put up a second slide and I said, here are the 18 clinics in the western province of Rwanda. I said, now that's better because it's only 1 day's walk to get health care, but if you've been to many developing countries, you know that a clinic in a lot of developing countries means a bottle of aspirin on a shelf and that's it. There's nothing else. I've been in clinics in Africa that had a stethoscope or a microscope and no medicine. I said, so it's better, they're only 1 day's walk away, but it's still not good enough for nearly 750,000 people. By the way, I said, of these 18 clinics, 16 of them are faith-based. They wouldn't be existence if it was just left up to the government. And then I put up the third picture and I said, oh, it was covered with dots, dot, all over the whole province of Western Rwanda. I said, all of these dots, they represent the 729 congregations of faith in this region. Now, if you needed health care, where would you like to go to get it? 2 days walk, 1 day's walk, or 5 minutes away? And so we began a project in the western province of Rwanda about 1.5 years ago. We invited 2 imams and 18 pastors, they were those in the area, to come and involve themselves in training. The pastor said, can the imams come? We said, of course they can. And so the 2 mosques and the 18 Christian churches in this area of Kabuye came and we said, what we're going to do is we're going to teach you basic healthcare skills. And we began a training. That training began to multiply in the mosques and in the churches together. And first there were 32. We asked each imam to pick 2 members out of his congregation and each pastor to pick 2 members out of his congregation. And so the first group, we had about 38 people take the training. 3 months later, they went out and got 38 more, brought them back, began to train them. You began to see how this began to multiply. We began to train them in how to care for basic human health needs, since there was only 1 doctor for 750,000 people. That project has exploded with growth from 100 to 200 to 400 to 800 to, by the end of this year, in a province in Africa that had only 1 doctor a year and a half ago, certified doctor, by the end of this year, because of the mosques and the churches working together, there will be over 1,500 trained healthcare workers in that area. Friends, this is the time for action. This is the time for civility. This is the time for respecting of each other. It's the time for the common good that we work together. Some problems are so big you have to team tackle them. May God bless you. And on the 4th of July, may God bless America. Thank you.
Pastor Rick Warren from California. Thank you. Let's give him a show of appreciation again. Pastor Rick Warren. My living room will take slight reconfiguration, so stay still, don't move. While the podiums disappear, we'll have 2 brief introductions of guests, and then another series of guests will arrive in my living room, inshallah, in just a few minutes. Don't move. And it is not a fundraiser, so just wait.
Belt pack.
Yeah.
I'll let you place that.
Yeah, I'm actually going to put it in my pocket.
That's fine.
Okay, I'll get it.
Okay.
Yep, you can do it. Let's see.
As long as it doesn't, yeah, that's the, as long as it's not covered up by the smoke.
Yeah. This is not a. Okay, whoops. It's off. Shouldn't it be off now? It is on? Yeah. I just flipped.
Sound man has it muted. He should have it muted.
Okay, because I was talking and it started coming on.
I'm coming
Okay,
in.
he's got it muted. All right.
Yeah, I'm going to give her this
All right,
one.
thank you.
Brothers and sisters, as my living room is being reconfigured for the next phase of our evening, I wanted to acknowledge, just make a couple